or it was out of the whole story. That's what I'm trying to make sense of, because it sounds to me like even when you like say your higher self is trying to talk to you, it still just speaks through symbols, even when it's telling you stuff, which is pretty profound, don't you think?
I do. I remember one of the other people I told this to was my doctor, Dr. P at the VA. I went in and I was so excited to tell him about what had happened to me. I had the arrowhead around my neck. I had put it in a little charm holder and was wearing it around my neck for a while. Brought it into his office and I told him what had happened to me, and he was fascinated. He was, I remember him saying, I can't believe you actually got a message, like you broke through. He wanted to he wanted to hear more about the story. Unfortunately, Dr. P got removed from the VA because of like conflicts of interest with this whole program. I mean, I heard through like rumors from another doctor, because I went in to see him and they're like, he doesn't work here anymore. Like he got removed basically for teaching that stuff to his patients. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. That even nowadays, like people don't get taken seriously when they talk about this stuff. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. And considering that where we left off, I think where we left off last time in your story was that you went to this cabin. Here's the thing, man, that really, really would have freaked me out is when you went to the cabin and you found the old books. So you found these dusted these like old dusty books. You said there's like 600 or 700 of them. Isn't that what you said?
Yep, there's about 8 moving boxes. All the boxes, including the shelves and the floor, everything in this back room of this chapel at the base of this hill was covered in like 6 inches of rat crap. So I couldn't even open the door when I first, got the keys and was figuring out what each key went to. I tried to open this door and you couldn't push. You had to really, when I finally decided to go in there, you had to use some real force to get that door to push through all that crap. And there's about 600 books. I've since dusted them off, moved a few times with them, become very familiar with each and every one of them. And I've read probably a dozen of them. I usually attack with intuition, and I get a profound message each and every time I dive in.
You know what someone said to me? They sent me a message and they said, when Chris was talking about how he was poisoned in his stomach, like how he felt like everything was, I don't know, like it felt like you said, it felt like you'd been poisoned. Someone said, well, what if that was from, touching all of that stuff, right? And that's a valid point. How could you tell the difference between like whatever was happening to your stomach at the time? Because if you guys remember when he told the story before, he got really sick, and come to find out those people went up there and killed themselves, and one of them poisoned themselves. So in other words, you believe, and I believe too, that you felt what it would feel like to be poisoned. But a person did reach out to me and say that maybe it was from touching all the old and dirty books that you got poisoned. But what did I don't think I asked you, what did the hospital say when you went there?
Well, I still have the hospital report, and I was looking at it just a few days ago, and they diagnosed me with dehydration. And when this all was happening, I was trying to put rational explanations behind everything. The difference in what the reason I'm leaning that direction is because when this happened, it was all of a sudden, and right before it happened, that rotten smell of death, I smelled this horrible smell, right? And this smell, so you could say but it wasn't just a lingering smell that was always there. This smell would come and it would go in a few seconds. It would be there and then it would be gone. So this pain, it came on all of a sudden, like the wind breezes through, this smell came through, and it brought this pain that brought me to my knees. And so when I got to the emergency room, they ended up having to sedate me because I couldn't sit still. I was in the emergency room like a fish out of water. Like, I was pretty embarrassed because I couldn't sit still. So they took me back right away, and like I said, they diagnosed me with dehydration. Um, and initially I thought, maybe there's just a bad odor and that's what's making me sick. But also, I'm trying to steal a gun from a cop to shoot myself, So it
Right.
was basically, here's the thing. And I was going to actually try to start my story with sort of a dedication, because one of the conclusions that I come to, which I don't think I mentioned, is that there was real people involved here. There was a real murder suicide, and this man, Melvin Martin and Tanya Sue Martin, 26 years old, of Gardenia, California, on September 1st, 1969, they took their own lives in a grotesque ritual right there. And that story has been hidden. It's been buried so that this place can profit and rent that chapel out for memorial services and weddings. And their story's been hidden. So part of my, like, I'm going to have a book published. It's not about me, really. I've been just trying to tell a story, tell my story, because my kids don't hardly want to hear it. But I'm really committed to telling the story of these two people because their story's been hidden. And had I not gone through this traumatic experience of trying to kill myself by pistol, stab myself with a pencil, and experience this traumatic pain in my stomach that had no explanation. I was not dehydrated. I know what dehydration is, but either way, because all this happened, I phone called when I got out of the institution after having been there for 24 hours. I phone called the past caretaker, Amy. And the first thing I did was ask her, what's up with that place? I
Right.
knew this was all connected. I started to make sense of everything. I had 24 hours of sleep under a sheet. I was figuring it all out. So when I had the interview with that psychiatrist, I clearly didn't divulge all the crazy shit. I currently was going through a custody battle, but was struggling with finances. So I just told the doctor I had a bad day. I had a pretty stable life, owned my own business. Things were going pretty well. I had a good relationship with my kids. I was just um, getting joint custody with my daughter because I was going through a divorce and all that stuff. But
Do you think I don't, how much of that do you think had to do with it? I don't think, you know, that was something I was going to ask you too. Like, how much of those two, do you know anything about that couple other than the fact that they just went up there and killed themselves? Do you know any more details
all I
about this?
know, all I know is what was published in that article in the Tucson Citizen. So anybody can go research it and read the same article that I read. It was in the Tucson Citizen from 1969, and it talks about them coming from Gardenia. Talks about them sending their daughter on a plane with a note to live with her grandmother. Their daughter was 3 years old at the time. She went to St. Louis by plane. The Ed Severson was the journalist that wrote the article. Basil Coburn was the caretaker at the time. He was 69 years old, from Avra Valley. He discovered the bodies. And it said that they had this steak dinner before they did it, and they were carrying around this canteen with poison the whole dinner, and they didn't let that canteen far from their grasp. And turned out that canteen contained poison, and Tanya drank it, and that's what killed her. And Melvin shot himself with a 32 pistol, and they discovered that pistol next to a stack of Mad magazines.
Huh.
Which is another thing that I forgot to mention that, but yeah, that's in the details. There was a stack of Mad magazines. She was dressed in all black. They were both dressed in all black, but she was found stripped naked. And they were at the foot of the pulpit.
That's so crazy, man. But nobody knows why, right? Like nobody knows what the motive was. I don't know why I'm curious about this, but I think that has some kind of direct, like that has some kind of direct thing that happened to you when this stuff got unlocked, right? Like I think that does. You have to think if it's a couple, right? They loved each other, so there's energy there. Number one, and they were probably madly in love with each other. If they were madly in love with each other to a point of maybe even psychosis, if they killed each other, so there was definitely some intense energy there. And then, to off yourself, man, like I can't even comprehend that unless it's some kind of Romeo and Juliet thing where it's like, well, we're just going to leave this world together because this world won't let us be. Like I just have been thinking about that. Like, what if that was some kind of trigger point for you? I'm not trying to make your story dark. It could be, I don't know, man. Lots of stuff is going through my head about that, honestly.
Well, in my own life, I've found that I've been called to this to sort of help the dead that are trapped, because that's what I've been doing. I've been communicating with people who have recently passed and bringing comfort to their loved ones. That's exactly what's been happening. Daughters with their parents, parents with their children. And in this case, I plan to publish their story, aside from that Tucson Citizen article that has basically been buried. The fact that this ever happened is being denied, purposefully covered up. And I think that will keep a soul stuck too, besides them having off themselves, even if their time was up and they had grown old and maybe they would have passed and transitioned already. I think the fact that their story has been purposefully covered up is enough to make you want to stick around. And maybe I don't know, maybe they were I think that I'm in a position to help their story be told, basically. I don't know that it was them reaching out to me. I don't think that. I think that because it's still happening. So God puts me where he wants me to be.
Okay, so after you left the cabin and you kind of picked back up with your normal life, so to speak. When did you start noticing? Because, I mean, then and there, I don't think you realized what was going on, right? At that time. When did you realize I might have some kind of gift where I can tap into people that have died? Like the sixth sense. When did it really hit you?
Well, this was all very traumatic. And so I stopped telling people about what had happened. I only told, a dozen people or less. And I just started reading all these books, and I decided to I had sort of a letting go moment in my truck. I was frustrated with my situation, and I was gripping onto the steering wheel of my truck. I let go, and I gave my life to God at that very moment. I said, God, I can't control what's going on. I don't know what's happening to me. Just take over my life and use me as a tool. And I got a phone call from the local school, local junior high, like 2 weeks later. They offered me position coaching, and that's how I started coaching at the school. And God, that's been the greatest opportunity for me to coach. I got to be the PE teacher for the 8th grade boys
Nice.
for a whole year. all the while I'm reading these books on when it boils down to it, a lot of them are just self-help books, but really old self-help books that talk about building your aura and the ether being a thing. And
You weren't
they're
talking to the school about this stuff, though, right?
no, they're
yeah.
metaphysical self-help books. So meanwhile, for a few years, I'm just reading the books and still doing HVAC, and I would start to get this feeling in my spleen. I can only describe it like as a light bulb is lighting up. There's like this vibration that comes from the inside out. And this would happen. This would happen in different places. And nothing like the pain I experienced in the caretaker's house was happening in these homes. It was like this loving vibration. I didn't really know. I didn't tie it to me seeing ghosts or any of that stuff that happened at the caretaker's house. This new thing was happening to me that had never happened to me before. And then it wasn't until I brought it up. And the lady told me, I brought it up, I said, there's a really loving presence in this house. Whose rocks are these? It seems like it's like around these rocks, these beautiful rocks. And she said, they're my daughter's. She just passed away, breast cancer. And I was like, well, she's here, I can, because all of a sudden my body is like vibrating, like humming. So I'm like, she's here. She loves you. And she just wanted you to know that. And the lady said to me, oh my gosh, have you ever seen Long Island Medium on TV? And I said, no, I never have. She said, you should watch it. It's a great show. And that was the first time that I thought, is what I'm doing mediumship? Because that lady said I should watch Long Island Medium, but I was just there to check this lady's air conditioning. So I went out into the van.
So you didn't really know what was happening, right?
No, but this, so let me finish. So I go out into the van, I'm sitting there doing my paperwork, and the lady comes running outside. Meanwhile, the whole time I was there, she was sitting on the couch covered in a pile of papers. This was during COVID, so 2020, and she's working from home, and she never got up off of that couch the whole time I was there for like a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. But she comes running out of the house while I'm in the van, like panicking, shaking, like tears coming out of her eyes. And I rolled down the window and I said, what's going on? And she said, Chris, you got to come inside right now. And I said, what happened? Did the AC stop working? She said, no, you just have to come in right now. So I turn off the van. I go inside, and there's this young lady in there, 13-year-old girl. She's her other daughter. And she had been sleeping in the back room, and she came out and went into the kitchen. And then she had a glass of milk in one hand and the gallon of milk in the other hand. And she came out into the living room where her mom was sitting, and she said, Mom, why did you light this candle? And her mom started freaking out because she never lights candles. Her dad died in a fire as a firefighter. She said those are his boots by the door, and they call her Fire Marshal Colby because she doesn't have matches in the house, no lighters, and there's this candle lit. So I look over to the side, and this grandfather clock that I had been admiring, it was suddenly open. So I asked to see a picture of her daughter, and she took me to this little shrine area, and I communed with it for a moment, and then I sat down with the family in the living room and started answering questions about how she's doing, that she's there clearly, and she wanted to let them know that everything is fine. And when this whole session was done, I was crying, they were crying, and I couldn't work the rest of the day. And so it was that specific time I realized what was happening, and then it just kept happening, and it just kept happening. And then I went to an event with you and other people, and I met a lady there who, on the flight back home, the last day I'm leaving, she tells me, from when I'm leaving Shasta, the last day I'm leaving in the airport, I told her my story because she hadn't heard it. And she said, "You're a physical medium. You just have to learn how to um, use protections, and you can grow into this." And so then now I live in a community where it's more accepted, and that's what I'm doing. And owning who I am, really.
Right. Huh. I bet. So when I saw you at the events in Mount Shasta and in Arizona, you were see, you never told me this. So you were kind of. Did you tell me this? Like, you didn't tell me this whole thing. Not there. Not. I mean, I've heard your story, but like, you didn't tell me that you thought like the medium part didn't seem to be in the story for some reason. I just thought that you had some synchronicities. I didn't know that this stuff was still happening to you on your daily routes around town. And I don't know how far you want to get into that too, because I don't want to mess with your, career or whatever. But we could talk about it if you want. But I understand if you don't want to as well. It's up to you. But this stuff still happens to you to this day, is what I'm saying,
right? Yes, it does. The synchronicities are what has put me in the right places. You pay attention to them. That's what allowed me to meet you, following all these synchronicities like a roadmap.
Some people want to know, like, and I always have a hard time explaining this because I look at life as kind of, I feel like that we're surrounded by, just to hear me out, that most people I'm surrounded by look at life like it's some kind of problem to solve. But I meet very few people that look like, or that are treat it like an adventure. When you treat it like an adventure, it seems like this voice talks to you. Now, I'm not a medium, right? And there are times that I feel like, Chris, that I'm in the flow of these synchronicities and things are happening just as the higher self, so to speak, wanted. And then other times I feel like I'm in the void where I've kind of slipped off the path. And, everybody's got an answer for that. Well, you should do this, you'll do that. But at the same time, I've tried all of it. And so I'm asking you for advice reasons. Like, if you find yourself having synchronicities and you're following your higher self, things are happening in a kind of a magical way. You understand what I'm talking about? That magical way that you can't explain to everybody else. And if you did, they're going to think you're crazy anyways. That goes away and you want to get it back. What would you tell people? Say, how do I get this back?
It's soul growth. It's
right.
It's being true to yourself. It's going inside. That whole meditation kicked it off.
So meditate
more. I don't think you necessarily need to sit down and meditate for 45 minutes or 30 minutes or even 15 minutes. I think you can start small with 10 minutes in the shower, because you need to be alone with yourself. You need to put down your phone and you need to have the TV off. You need to be free of all distractions, and it's hard to get that nowadays. And so I take time every morning to reground myself in the morning when I take a shower, and clear my head. I don't still meditate for 30 to 45 minutes on a regular basis. I just haven't continued that since I lived out here in California, but I do take a shower every day, and that's usually where I get my clarity, focus. I say a prayer and I ask For the same thing that I asked that day, I surrendered to be a tool for service of people. That's what my job allows me to do, and very often I get to help people in more ways than just what I'm there for to begin with.
So do people come to you and ask for help as far as talking to the dead, so to speak?
No, I haven't advertised. That's just the thing. I'm just an HVAC technician. It just happens on a regular basis, because I visit 1,000 houses a year. Had I not had this career, I don't think that I would have developed a greater sense of selflessness. I'm not completely selfless. I'm not self-serving. I strive for this mutual relationship where if I can help this person, then by helping them, they're helping me, and there's mutual benefit in what I'm doing. Um,
Sure.
but
That's
honestly, Joe, it's honestly, Joe, when you say like I'm not a medium, I truly think that, and then I've heard you say you have this gift, but that stuff, those phrases, I have to speak to them because I don't think that it's a special gift from God, save for one person more than any other. It's just the result of my involvement and maybe ability to be conscious on other planes. You're able to be conscious in the astral plane and still function in the physical body, so you have just as much ability as me and anybody else.
I think it's cool that certain people have things that they can do. I know people that can see stuff, like they see auras, they see, I guess they're called clairvoyants, they can see things, right? I know people that can feel things really well. But you have to understand too, Chris, and on a real level here, like I know a lot of people that, and you are not one of them. So when I say this, understand that you are not one of them. I know a lot of people that are bullshitting themselves on major levels, and I kind of take that as a method of truth discovery too, because here's the thing: if you take a person who actually has some psychic ability, or a person who can actually get out of body, or let's just say a person that's clairvoyant, clairaudient, I know that these people exist. I know them, but it seems like we're in a world of people that want to be these things, and they're just not. And I don't want to be the one to go, yeah, I don't think that it's not that you can't do it, it's not that you're not able to do it, I just don't think that you've unlocked what you think you've unlocked yet. And how do you tell that person, that they're bullshitting themselves? Because I feel like, I know this isn't your field at all, but I'm telling you from my point of view, I feel like those people are doing you a disservice, right? Just like if someone got physically attacked and they go around crying abuse, 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 that does a massive disservice to number one, the truth, and number two, the person that actually has been abused, because they won't get the attention or I guess what they need to get, because there's so much delusion around them. I think it's selfish for people to go around and delude themselves and then try to market themselves when you have someone like you, who I know personally and I can vouch for, that went through all of this like trauma. And just now it's like, man, I really want to come out, and I guess I should talk about this more. Like, you've been struggling with this for years. I don't think people know that you've been struggling with talking about this or opening up to saying, I think I have this gift. You've told the story, but as far as you saying, I think I have this gift, you've been struggling with that for some time. You see what I'm saying? And the whole reason why that you're struggling with saying it is because there's so many people out there that are deluding this thing. And I'm just hoping that that ends, you know. I don't know if you want to comment on that or not. I think it's really important that we all tell the damn truth, you know, because it's not boring. I think some people are afraid of, well, if I tell the truth, I'm just going to be boring or I'm not going to be interesting. Probably not. If you really told us your whole truth, it would probably be super interesting, you know. Hope I'm making sense, because when you tell me your story, it sounds scary. And I know it's a positive thing for you, and I'm glad that it is, and I'm glad you're a brave guy. But if I would have went through all that stuff at that cabin, I might have went crazy, bro. I don't know if I would have made it through it. You smelling what I'm stepping in?
I do. I couldn't agree with you more. It has been pretty difficult to accept what was happening. And you're right, because I've been the biggest skeptic of them all.
Right.
Growing up, I didn't believe anything unless I could see it. And holy shit, I was seeing shit, man. I saw it, I felt it, I smelt it, and I heard it.
You saw it, you smelt it, and you felt, yeah. And it's, you know, if you think about like people that have been abducted by aliens, right? Some stories that you listen to are pretty profound. And then I'll just be honest with you. I've been doing this stuff on and off for years. I've talked to people on the show, I've talked to people at conferences, I have people email me. I talk to people all the time. Now I don't talk to as many as I used to. But the thing that bothers me the most is how, I guess it is how much people really care about the truth, or do they really care about just seeming interesting or cool, right? Because it's some kind of attention thing. And most of the time when people have something that's really happened to them, they're afraid, they're scared to come out. Like take Robert Monroe, for example. When he came out and wrote his book, he had a media company, bro, like a big radio company. He was a part of a board, a millionaire, I guess you could say. I don't know how much money was, but successful. So when he released this book, like, hey, I'm getting out of body, I'm flying around, and he was really scared. He went to doctors thinking he was crazy, all kinds of stuff. You know, it was a big deal for him to come out with this thing. And I really appreciate you sharing this part with us. But I also want to stress that, you know, it's important that we all tell the truth, because if we don't, we're doing Chris and Robert Monroe and Travis Walton and everybody that's had like real experiences a disservice. So when I say, hey man, I know I'm not a medium, that's just me checking myself. You understand what I'm saying? So that I don't do anybody else a disservice.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Joe. I appreciate that. Yeah.
That'd be like, you know, someone called me a name or treated me bad, and then I go around and go, abuse, I've been abused, give me attention, heal me, give me attention. Meanwhile, there's somebody somewhere that's literally getting abused, and they're scared to even say something because they're going to get abused more. See, I'm hurting that person even more. You know, that's all I'm saying. I'll stop my rant now. But it just bothers me. It bothers me because there's a lot of special people out there that have been through a lot, and it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. And as soon as you come out and say something, you know everyone's going to judge you for it. And if you're a person that loves and likes and cares about other people, that bothers you when people start judging you or don't like you, you know. Bothers me.
I had a doctor at the VA that I was referred to because I was looking for answers anywhere I could. And when I told my story to a psychiatrist that they referred me to at the VA, the lady straight up told me, I can't help you. You need to see some sort of spiritual advice, like
Really?
a priest or something. Yeah. So then,
like a priest or something. Hell yeah.
Yeah. She couldn't help me. She's just basically, that's what she said.
That's cool because some psychiatrists would have been like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm going to give you this medication, or maybe we need to put you in the hospital for a few days." You know what I mean? And I know people that have been locked up. As a matter of fact, I've had friends that have been through some really hardcore stuff, and because they couldn't come out and tell their story, and I won't mention their names, it was so hard on them that they took their own life, bro. That's how real this stuff gets.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just something that you can buy on a shelf or that's real colorful and cool. Like some of the stuff, most of the time when people have medium experiences, I don't know, like it drains you, doesn't it? You told me that. Like it physically drains you. Which
It
that's a
physically
whole other
drains
thing.
me different.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's exhausting. It's not something that anybody, I think, should wish upon themselves. It's a heavy burden to carry. Actually, it sucks.
You feel it in your
It's not
body every time.
exactly. I feel it in my body every time. It's not exciting. It's not cool. I haven't been seeking any kind of attention. I've actually just appreciated the support because I couldn't find any support anywhere in the community that I was in. When I did seek spiritual help, they preachers think you're dealing with evil, and I was just fed up with it. The best spiritual help I got was from, again, in my line of work. I just happened to take care of the heating and air conditioning at a Vietnamese Buddhist temple in Tucson called the Dharma Flower Temple or whatever. And the master there, she heard my story, and she was very comforting. She didn't look at me strange. She tried to take me under her wing, and I dig Buddhism. It's good
Wow.
stuff. I don't, I'm not a Buddhist, but all the stuff that I've read, I have some pretty cool stuff.
So tell me about what it's like. Can you walk me through a scenario where you feel something? Tell me what happens to you.
There's a physical feeling in my spleen. It's right there in my chest plate. And so I put a protection around myself regularly now because I don't want anything negative to come into my body like that did that one time. And that's what I've learned from other mediums, so I've created my own personal protection ritual that I go through. But I allow positive entities to come through because I want to help. And so it doesn't always happen, but it begins in my spleen, and it's like a vibration. Some people have seen Stranger Things. You've seen Stranger Things, and I remember when I was watching it, and I watched Winona Ryder when she's in the season 1, and she's trying to describe how she's communicating with her son Will with these Christmas lights.
Yeah.
And then she told Will like 1 for yes or 2 for no, and the light would light up. Well, that's what I feel inside my chest. It's like a light that's vibrating and from the center on outward. And
Wow.
so I don't hear people talking in my ear. I have heard voices, but it's very seldom. I could, less than both my hands, maybe 5 or 6 times I've heard auditory, but it's usually just this feeling. So I can do the yes or no thing. That's about all I can do when communicating. But I'll speak out to the entity, the disembodied spirit, like it's a regular person right there. That's what you have to do. You have to confront them. So I do it before I walk into a house.
Isn't the spleen a part of the endocrine system, right? Like the reason why I'm saying that is Manly P. Hall and a couple of other artists actually wrote about the spleen or the pineal gland, all those different parts of the body. I could be totally wrong, but I think the spleen's a part of that system that fights off infection, right? So that those glands in our body, Manly P. Hall said something. He said something profound. He said that later in life or later down the road, doctors and scientists would discover that this is the most important system in our body. And not only that, that it's directly connected to the astral and the spiritual world somehow. So you didn't even know that, did you?
No.
So that's trippy that you're saying it's the spleen. So anyways, I cut you off. So when you walk into a house, if something's there, you'll feel it in your spleen, you're saying. There's something.
Yes. There. Yeah, that's correct.
That's got to be scary because that's, I'd be wondering if I was having a heart attack or something, you know? Matter of fact, anytime I get a weird pain in my stomach or chest, I start wondering about that kind of stuff. But is that the extent of it, though?
It's not painful. It's loving. It's like I'm being hugged. It's warm and fuzzy.
Well, that's not bad. I wouldn't mind that.
No, it's wonderful actually. I mean, but like it's exhausting though. Physically, it's exhausting. I guess I'm using energy or something. I don't know the answers to just going through it, you know?
Sure. Yeah. So it'd be so do you get the same feelings like emotionally that you would if you were loving on somebody that, I don't know, was in a very vulnerable state? Like it just drains you to feel that deep? Do you feel in your emotions too, or is it just a bodily feeling? Sorry, I'm hammering you these questions. I'm just really curious about it.
I don't mind the questions. I do feel the emotions. I'm an empath. That sounds cliche to say, but I have to accept that too. I cry at the most ridiculous things. Like I can genuinely feel someone else's pain, and it's exhausting. Yeah, it's annoying.
I'll tell you that he's telling the truth too, because I have a few good friends in my life. Chris is one of them. You know, Domek's another one. Bryce is another one. I've got a few good friends. I'm kind of blessed in that sense. But Chris, I'll just say this: like one time I called him on the phone, and I was in a bad way, and immediately, like you're the only person that's ever done that. It almost felt like a parental figure, and it felt so comforting too, man. Like as soon as I called you, it's like you knew something was up. You were like, "Hey, man, what's up? What's wrong?" You remember that? Wasn't too long ago either. You were like, "What's wrong?" You know, and it was like an urgent thing. Like you could feel it, like something like I was falling apart. So, and I kind of was at the time, where I was. So you're not sure about that because I asked you, can you feel that stuff on the other side of the phone? But you definitely did, man. You know how many people I called that day? 6, right? None of them. They're all talking about themselves, their own problems, their own things, and I get that. That's what we do. We're focused on our world. As soon as I called you, dude, you were like, "What's wrong?" Almost, and the way you said it too was almost like if a kid broke their arm or something. If it was like you're a kid. So I think I understand what you're saying when you feel this kind of stuff. Hope I'm not putting too much on you.
No, I've gotten really good at being present. That's the key, being present in this moment, trying not to worry about the future or the past. Not forgetting, but not. And being present in this very moment is how we affect our future, and so that's something I think we can all strive to be better at.
Can you? Well, maybe I'll ask you this during the break, but I'll go ahead and ask you now. Can you tell me? You don't have to use their names, but Can you tell me about a recent experience that you knew was besides the candle one, like just a recent one that you knew there was something in that, like a house or whatever, that or someone was there trying to talk to you, or a dead person was there, I guess. I don't know how to say that any more politely than that.
Well, it's hard to judge uh, by the outside of a house, but this one particular house, I was judging. I couldn't help it because it was so different than all the other houses. Um, the decorations were gothic, pretty creepy. There was gargoyles and demons all over the yard, um, and trees creating a lot of shade. Um, Dead trees, lots of vegetation. Um, Compared to the houses around it, it was just looked dark and almost like a haunted house. And so I was already sort of weary about walking into this house. There's a cowboy statue with a gun pointed at your face right when you walk up to the front door, like you're facing the pistol. So I ring the doorbell, and this lady answers the door, and immediately, yeah, I felt a presence. Um, but it wasn't an evil presence like I would have maybe presumed by the outside. It was this warm and fuzzy, loving presence right there in that front room by the couch. And I noticed there was an elderly man sitting on the back chair with a long white wizard beard, and he wasn't moving. He was, if I was to guess, he was probably 100 years old. And the lady who opened the door was his daughter. She was an older woman. And I proceeded to do a heating inspection on the furnace. And then I was wrapping up in the hallway and just sort of summarizing what I had gone through. And I couldn't help, because I started to feel this overwhelming warm and fuzzy in my inside. I said, there's a really powerful, loving energy in your home, and I can't ignore it. I just have to say something about it. And it's really strong right when I walked in the door in that front room by the couch. And she said, well, my mom just passed away last week on that couch.
Wow.
And that's my dad, in the other room. And I told her, I said, well, she's here. And, she asks, is she okay? And so then my body just like lights up, I'm like, yes, that's a strong, powerful yes to me. Um, and I just said, she's here because your dad needs her, as he's going to be joining her pretty soon. And then she told me, yeah, that her dad was likely didn't have much longer to live. And I ended up in tears in the hallway with this lady. And um, it's not fun thing to bring up with strangers in their house. But
I can tell
I
by
don't
how
always,
you're telling it. Yeah.
I don't always bring it up. It's almost like the entity, the person will nudge me if they do want me to. Like the feelings start to get like where I just can't ignore it. Their relative is standing right in front of me, and it's like poking me to like say something about it. So then I'll bring it up, but I don't always bring it up. I don't always want to.
Why not?
Yesterday I felt something. I just uh, it's a good question, Joe. I don't know if I have a responsibility to or not.
Well, I mean,
Because I
it
don't.
feels heavy, right? I mean, I could just by hearing you talk about it, it feels heavy, So I'm sure it's not easy every time.
It's not asked for. People didn't say, I'd like to have a medium come into my house and tell me if my dead relatives are here. I want to, So you don't even know if people are believe in life after death. You don't know if I'm usually just there to try to service their. Well, I'm always there. I'm just there for air conditioning and heating. So I've only brought it up, you know, probably close to a dozen times now. But I get feelings a lot, but I don't always bring it up, man. It'll when I'm crying with a stranger uh, that I just met.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've thought to myself, I don't know. I don't know if I could handle
Yeah.
doing
Imagine having to
it
do it like
on
every
a
single
regular
day,
basis.
twice a
Right.
day, every day, you know. Uh,
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, that would be. I don't know that even twice a day would be possible. I mean, not that it wouldn't be possible, but that would suck, basically.
what I, and I mean, you kind of helped me with this stuff, but what I would say is, to really like hone this thing in is I might, if I was you, get back into, Manly P. Hall and some other books where he talks about how to take what's happening to you and really turn it into a clairvoyant thing. Um, because mediums, I don't even know if it would be like mediumship, because I've talked to people that claim to be mediums, and they'll just start, talking about whatever, taking in whatever. It seems like yours is kind of really specific to people that have passed, right? Have you had any other kinds of messages, or is it always the people that have passed on?
Well, at the property, I call it the Cove. It's a cove at the base of the mountain. So when I was at the Cove at the caretaker's house, that dark entity that I saw was 7 foot tall. It was it was taller than the door jamb. It was like the curtain height was 3 foot wide, and it floated into the living room, into the kitchen. I watched this thing. I saw a little 4 foot dark entity with long, gangly arms and long fingers. I'm going to send you these pictures. I don't know if you can share them or not, but I sketched out what I saw. Those entities, I don't believe were ever human. There's a there's a group in Tucson that I went to before I moved to Southern California that would meet like on Sundays once a month. It was a place, a collective for uh, metaphysical type of things, and they would have this. They called it like the UFO meeting, but they would talk about UFO experiences. And I went in there one week, only one time, and I told my story to this group of people. And there was a gentleman sitting on my right who said that there are entities bound to the land by natives because that's the only thing that they could do is bind them to the location. And that probably that's what I was dealing with. That was just his opinion, but I've read in the books, one book specifically uh, called The Initiates. It just describes that there are different types of spirits. There's dead people, but there's also disembodied entities that were never human. Um,
Hmm.
and I believe that to be the case, that there's different types.
But you don't go like have out of body experiences or anything like that, right? This is just something that is something I wouldn't say it's separate, but it's a different way of picking up that stuff in that realm, I think. I don't know, man. I'm just curious, like how. I kind of want to know what it feels like, bro. But then again, when you talk about it, it makes me nervous.
I believe Here's what I believe. I believe that the amount of spiritual traffic at certain locations is so heavy that you could have an experience. I believe I could take you out there to the cove. We could take a group. We could make an event out of it. We could take a group of us. We'll have an experience. I could take you exactly to this place. I haven't gone back since after dark. I'll go back and I'll visit the chapel. I'll go hiking out there, but not after dark. I refuse to go after dark. I'm terrified. But if I had a buddy with me or a group, I would probably build up the courage to go try to prove to somebody, and I guarantee you somebody will have an experience because
and that's a Marine talking too. So you're not scared of much. I know how Marines are trained, you know. So you must have really saw something that spooked you, man. You know?
I won't go there after dark, man. It's so scary after dark out there. There's like, it's just, but I would, but there's a cottage there. You know, we could book it, we could rent it, and watch.
See, this is the thing too. It's like I hear from all these people. I hear lots of different arbitrary rules about mediumship and conscious exploration and things like that. Like, oh, you don't eat meat or don't do this, don't drink, don't smoke, don't whatever. I hear all this stuff, and yet, I mean, I know you. I know you probably drink a few beers like I do. I smoke weed every now and then, you know. Robert Monroe, the guy that did that thing with Robert Monroe, said he ate cheeseburgers and smoked cigarettes all the time. I just watched a video the other night of this lady that was 104 years old. This is kind of off the subject, but she said she drank 3 Dr. Peppers a day from the time she was 12 till now, and she's 104. That could just be genetics, but what I'm saying is I'm trying to figure out how this correlates to the body. Because most people are going to say, well, you know, if you cleanse yourself and you do all these cleanses and fast, and I read these books, even ritual books, ritual books that tell you to fast, and you pretty much got to starve yourself, and anybody's going to have or is going to be more susceptible to those realms because your body's withered to nothing. You have nothing in it. It's not working, you know? So when I see this stuff happen to people like you, me, or Monroe or whatever, it makes me wonder how much we got wrong about all this, you know, like how much we think we really know. And what if the truth is as humans, like we don't know shit. When it comes to that place, we don't know shit. We don't know the first thing about it. We just think we do.
Joe, I've got to make a comment because it's just important. I was in that state when all this began to me, what you speak of.
What state?
I currently, I wasn't eating meat. I was, okay, so I had a health scare. I had a mass removed from my neck, and it scared the shit out of me. It wasn't cancer or anything, but
yeah.
I was having like an adverse reaction to some of the inoculations I received in the Marine Corps. The anthrax really jacked me up. So the doctors were like, "You can do this," and I'm like, "No, I'm just gonna, change my diet." And I had been visiting this old man to do his AC, and every time I'd come, I'd have a Dr. Pepper, and he'd say, "What'd you have for lunch today, Chris?" And I'd be like, "I had a hot dog," and he'd say, "You know why the hot dog is the worst thing you can eat?" And the next day, he'd be like, "What'd you have for lunch?" And I'd be like, "I had some fried chicken," and he'd say, "Do you know why fried food is the worst thing you can eat?" So for 5 years, this man was telling me how I should eat and what I should not eat, and he would explain it to me why, because he was a physics professor at the university, and so he would explain to me with basic physiology and basic biology why certain things were toxic for my body.
Sure, yeah.
And so after 5 years, of hearing him, finally I was in a position where I could use all this information he gave me. So I started eating a quarter cup of raw organic broccoli, cauliflower, and red cabbage every day. I was taking 2 teaspoons of coconut oil. I started drinking water out of only glass or non-BPA plastic. I was eating all veggies. I was eating like a rabbit. I quit eating meat. I quit drinking alcohol. I didn't drink alcohol for 7 years when all this stuff had happened to me. I only started drinking in Memorial Day of 2020 because I was stressed out from all the COVID stuff.
Right.
But and I'm eating meat now. I eat meat, weekly. I'm back to, as far as diet goes, kind of more conscious consumption, and just try to maintain a healthy balance with getting all my protein and carbs. And I'm not a vegan anymore per se, but when all this stuff happened to me, I was down to 165 pounds, and I was jogging like 3, 4, 5 times a week regularly, and I was scrawny as all hell.
Maybe that's what opened you up to it.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I get confused because some people get open to this, like they have to go through what you're talking about, and then it opens them up to this stuff. Other people just seem to be able to just do it regardless. There's a lot.
I don't know if there's a formula, but when this all was happening, I thought that had a lot to do with it. And then I tried to turn off these extra sensory perceptions by drinking, and because I was there was a time where I was just sick and tired of it, like sick and tired of going into houses and this happening to me. So I was drinking a lot, and I was experimenting, like maybe I can reduce my consciousness back to what it used to be, because this is bullshit, but it didn't work.
You can't go back. So, once you open the door, you can't go back through it, right?
So I have a couple beers here and there, when I go out. I don't have beer in the refrigerator, but I enjoy a drink every now and then, and I eat beef and eggs and drink milk. And
cool. All right, well, look, we're going to take just a short break, and then when we come back, we'll get to your questions, too. The phone lines will be open as well. I mean, you can ask Chris anything you want to ask Chris. You can ask in the chat room, too, if you don't want to call in, but anybody that calls in is going to get dibs. I just got to make sure that I can hear the damn ringer. All right. Well, so we'll be back. It's more Lighting the Void coming up. And then tomorrow night on the broadcast, Mary DeCina is coming back. We're going to have our new moon special. We've been doing that for over 5 years, every new moon. So make sure you catch that, too. Someone in the chat said that Joe Rogan had on the lady from the telepathy tapes on today, too. So be checking that out after the broadcast. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
you suffered in silence or experienced stress from a paranormal experience? Even if it happened 20 years ago, when thinking or talking about it today still makes you feel sick to your stomach or makes your heart beat faster, or you suddenly can't breathe. Maybe you even feel those old familiar signs of a panic attack trying to reach the surface. You could have unprocessed emotional responses. Those reactions of terror and trauma are no different than living through a horrible assault, childhood abuse, or a terrible car accident. It can be nearly impossible to find help. The very instance of seeing a ghost or encountering a cryptid could be clinically described as seeing or hearing things that aren't there. You could be considered psychotic, or at best, you're just not taken seriously. Out of a growing mountain of research, the National Institute for Integrative Healthcare showed that 8 out of 10 veterans who completed just 6 one-hour EFT sessions no longer tested positive for PTSD. If you've had paranormal trauma, you can contact Metaphorical Archaeology by calling 214-995-3754. Again, that's 214-995-3754 for a discreet consultation.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or, will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month, at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
This is Malorcas45, fan of the Fringe FM, challenging everyone to open their mind's eye. Listen to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop to gain precision for your third eye vision.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hey, this is country music singer and void walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
From the afterlife and into your life, this is Art Bell, and you are listening to Joe Roop and Lighting the Void here on the Fringe FM.
Bumper stickers are a fun side hustle with low-cost investment that has built-in advertising to attract local customers in parking lots, rallies, gatherings, conventions, venues, and more. You could potentially sell these bumper stickers on consignment to local businesses, tattoo parlors, head shops, or any other independently owned store that might gear toward the fringe. Bumper stickers are great gift-giving ideas for friends and family. Also, a way to wake up your fellow travelers on the path without having to waste energy in tiresome debates. No car? No problem. Bumper stickers will stick to just about anything with a semi-smooth surface. Go to www.justbsme.com and get your bumper stickers today.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Roop.
Lighting the Void Radio. Man, that feels like a RoboCop. That song is called Soul Siphon by Daniel Deluxe. It makes you feel like we're in some kind of crazy 90s movie. Anyways, we're here with Coach Chris. This is part 2 of his story, and I feel really blessed to be able to share this on here with Chris. I feel like it's some kind of weird coming out party for Chris, but not coming out that way, but more like, hey,
God.
this is this is happening to me, you know. And I just, even hearing you talk about it, man, it's like it's an intense feeling. It's intense. And I'm so glad that you're sharing it with us, because we'll be able to support you anytime you need, not just me, but the Discord community, stuff like that too. So we're all here for you, man. And if you're helping people, if it's helping people, you know, I would give anything, as much as it might drain you, and I hope it doesn't, but I'd give anything if I could talk to my grandmother, or if I even knew that she was there. Like, she was the only sense of, I guess you could say, female or motherly comfort I ever had in my life. And my grandmother was a hard ass, so she wasn't the, you know, I never had that super motherly love, but she was the closest thing to it, and I miss her every day, bro. So if you was to come into my house, or let's just say my shack, and then say, hey, man, your grandmother's trying to talk to you or something, if you really felt it, if it was real, man, that would change my life. You know how profound that would be? That'd be so profound, dude. So I can also say, I could see why it drains you every day, because these people that you're talking about mean the world to these other people, you know. So I'm sure it's real heavy. I'm just saying thanks, Chris. I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, Joe, thanks for helping me along this journey. You've allowed me a safe space to talk about it without feeling judged, and it feels good to be able to share it, to be able to share these crazy things. That couple, that intense situation where the candle lit, and a girl that passed away named Emma, her mom and sister, they were so grateful as well. It was so heavy, Joe. Like, we were all hugging. We all took pictures together. I even took pictures of the candle and the clock. And the lady's my friend. When I was finally walking out the door, she said, I feel like I should give you money or offer you money. And I said, no way. I didn't come here for this.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, to what you're saying, her and her daughter were very grateful for what had just happened. And perhaps it gave them some sense of peace, or maybe it helped them heal. I don't know, but
it would give me peace. Yeah. I know that. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it was someone that, you know, like I said, man, there isn't the day after my grandmother died, I thought that's it. When you lose somebody in your life that really loves you, I don't know how to say this without sounding like an ass, but there's a sense of security there that comes with it. It's kind of like when someone loses both their parents or whatever. You know, the truth of the matter is this world isn't all sunshine and rainbows. There's most people out there. It sounds cynical, but it's true. Most people out there, when they lay their head down at night, they're not thinking about you. They got their own problems. They're not. There's 8 point something, whatever billion people in the world. So we only have so many people that actually love us, care about us, want the best for us, that would do anything for us. Those kind of people that you have in your life. When they pass away, it's hard to deal with. Some people never recover from it. And some people, like myself, sit around and think, are they gone forever? Was that it? It makes you think about those kind of things. Start to question life and all these. I mean, you'll go through a crisis almost. I know I did when my grandmother died. So if you was to come into my house and just even say like anything that would represent her, that's really cool, you know? And it's, you know, I see these people do this stuff on the TV shows. Like I forget what that guy's name is who does the, you know what I'm talking about? He's like the car psychic or whatever. And he does it like an Uber and he just spits stuff out. And they only record stuff that is kind of spot on and they leave the rest out. Versus a guy like you, you're going in there and you're like, oh man, you know, should I say something to these people? I guess I should, because you even said earlier, sometimes you just don't. How do you know, do you know when you should or shouldn't say something to the people that you're around? Is there a voice or is there a feeling that tells you, yeah, go ahead and tell them? Or is that a decision that you make for yourself?
It's a decision I have to make. I have to use my intuition and I trust my gut. So.
Yeah. Man, you ever think about like right before you're about to walk into a house, like, man, is this going to be, you know, is this going to be another one of those deals where you're just happy about it now?
Yeah. I'm in the habit of being prepared at every house for protection as well as service. So it's become part of my daily motion, even though I'm moving through HVAC, I'm ready to serve in this other capacity at all times. For right now, it seems to be the easiest way. I'm not in any position or prepared to advertise my services. However, if someone reached out to me and said, hey, Chris, I think there's something in my house, you know, I would be willing to serve because I think that that's the whole point. These gifts of the Spirit are to be used for the good of everyone.
Yeah.
And so perhaps I should get more comfortable mentioning it whenever I feel it. But so far, I don't have any regrets or look back and think, oh, I should have mentioned it. It's all been good since that house, since the Cove. You know, like I said, I call it the Cove, but that caretaker's property, that's the last time I felt anything horrible and terrifying. Maybe if I was doing HVAC calls at night, it would be different, huh?
Maybe, yeah.
I was visiting people during the daytime, and I think there's something to the dark not liking the light, so.
Yeah, like I think there's something to that, but I also think there has to be a certain amount of faith that comes with these things, right? Because at some point, if it hasn't already happened, someone's going to judge you. Someone's going to not treat you well or call you a liar or look down on you, or what we call in this day and age, they're going to hate on you. And that's
already happened.
That's unavoidable. I think it's just totally unavoidable, you know. But I also think, Chris, that when you're following your higher self, I hate to even say this because I'm not Christian. Like I'm spiritual, but I was raised Christian, and so I know the Bible, a lot of it, and like the story of Joseph. You know the story of Joseph, right? Like he was betrayed by his brothers. He was sold into slavery. You know, his own family threw him in a pit, left him there to die. And long story short, in the end of the story, Joseph became the only thing that was, he was the same level as the Pharaoh of Egypt. And the Pharaoh told him the only time you're not in charge is when I'm not around. Basically, the Pharaoh gave him his ring at the end of the story, and everybody bowed down to the guy. And I think Moral of that story is like when you have complete faith, no matter what you're going through, it doesn't seem like this is true, but it is. When you have faith and you're going through those things, you're going to have haters. People are going to betray you. They're going to hate you. They'll walk out on you. They'll leave you in the dust, whatever. But if you're in the favor of spirit, in other words, I think if you're walking right in line with your higher self, God, whatever you want to call it, when it's your time to shine your light, you can't lose. Like nothing's going to be able to hurt you. Does that make sense what I'm saying? It's almost like saying when it's your time to win, there's no amount of hate that's going to hurt you. And I understand this because I've met these type of people in my life that inspired me growing up that, all kinds of crap would come against them and like no one would put their bets on these people. But in the end, they ended up turning into the biggest light or the biggest success. And almost it seems like they just can't lose, right? And I think that happens when you get right in line with what you're being called to do. You'll still go through some shit, like going through it, but it's almost like it's not your choice when it's time to shine. Like it just happens. Does that make sense at all, what I'm saying?
Yes, it does. I agree 100%. Get on your path. It's a lot smoother than trying to be on the path that you're not supposed to be on.
Yeah, and I feel like I have this weird thing where I think, is fate real or not or whatever, but I think we make our own decisions no matter what. We can play this video game no matter how we want to play it. But when we get in line with how we're supposed to play it, when it's time to win, so to speak, or get the princess in the castle, nothing can stop you. You just have to go through all that stuff, That's the kind of thing that I feel like you've been through that already. Don't you? I could be wrong, but I feel like you've been through a lot of that already.
Yeah, you're right.
It's tough, man. It's got to be tough. Really. It's easy for me to say I had an out-of-body experience and not worry about what people think. It's a whole other thing to step up and say, well, I talk to people that have passed on that want to send a message to others, because that's a big deal to everybody. The whole reason why, and I think it's a big synchro that you're here now. One of the biggest reasons why I started this show was because I had a fear of the unknown. That's why I called it Lighting the Void. I'm scared of the death. I'm not the physical death, but just disappearing or the unknown or the void. And so I find a lot of comfort in your message.
Well, the best advice that you gave me in Arizona, you gave the group was to do what you're afraid of.
Yeah.
Remember telling everybody that? Do the things you're afraid of?
Yeah, I've given that advice, but it's come back and kicked me. Like another part of that I think I left out, and I don't know if I left it out, is that you'll find that a lot of the things that you think are really, really scary, when you get on the other side of that fear, they're not at all. They're tiny. But yet, every time you face a fear and you conquer it, it never seems to end. Like there's an even bigger one, right? There's a bigger fear that you weren't even aware of. And now you got to face that one. So it's like playing a video game. It's like another level of fear. So yeah, I stand by what I said, but at the same time, if you're going to go on this journey, be prepared. Because if you're not facing a fear, more than likely, you're ignoring something, or you're in some kind of delusion. There's always a deeper fear to face. And in the end, as a human, and it shows this in the story of Christ and other spiritual stories, the biggest fear we all have to face is the void or death. even Christ felt forsaken on the cross, like he felt alone, you know. So, yeah, but I stand by that. Sorry about the rant, but I stand by that. Because there's a lot of little things that we think are massive things when they're just not, you know. Bro, you could come tell me that you got abducted by blue aliens with pink beaks, and we'd still be friends. I wouldn't judge you. I might have some questions, but you know what I mean.
Blue aliens with pink beaks. That's never happened.
I know it hasn't, but I'm just saying I'm pretty accepting, even to people's delusions, but yours isn't, you know. And I've been thinking a lot about my grandmother when she passed away. And ever since you were telling me all this stuff, it reminded me when I was working at Verizon, the old lady called in, and I get the same vibe from you that I got from her. So when my grandmother died, she was in the hospital bed, and you know how they have them. She was just plugged up to all kinds of stuff. The machines were breathing for her. I can tell she was barely conscious. I mean, it was horrible to watch, but I wanted to be there with her. And I remember like sitting beside her bed, holding her hand. And I used to do this, you know, before she was in the hospital. I'd just hold her hand and rub my thumb on the top of her hand, you know, kind of like a gentle stroke. I don't know why I did it, but I would do that. And I did that while she was in the hospital bed when she was dying. And I had this old lady call in when I was taking tech calls at Verizon. And this would happen every now and then. She just stopped to me and she was like, "Hey, yeah, I got to tell you something." And I'm like, "Okay, what?" And I had that feeling as soon as she said that she's about to tell me, you know, here's another person that's going to tell me they're a psychic or a medium. And sure enough, she was like, "You know that when your grandmother passed, she heard your voice. She was right there. And when you were stroking her hand with your thumb, that brought her a lot of comfort because she was scared, you know." And I freaked out, bro, when that lady told me that. It's just still making my hair stand up on my arms right now talking about it. Look at that. Yeah.
You see, that's what'll happen. A psychic sometimes will just approach you and to give you a message. It's happened to me before I had become caretaker of that property and was working in that chapel. I had a guy come up to me in the middle of a rainstorm in the grocery store parking lot, and he put his hand on me and he said, "Hey, do you have a question about the light?" And I said yes, because I had some weird experiences that I'll tell you that story. But I said yes, and he said, "I was over in my truck praying, and the Lord Jesus Christ told me to tell you that you have the gift of discernment. I have the gift of prophecy. You will find yourself a leader of troubled youth, and you will have your own congregation and a chapel on a hill." And then he told me not to fear the entities that I'm afraid of, that they're the Nephilim, and they're biblical, and they've tried to take him from his room, and that if I use the name Jesus Christ, that I'll be protected. This stranger said this shit to me that I'd never seen before in my life. He told me this in the rainstorm in a parking lot of the grocery store. This was all before all this. Yeah, and then later on, you know, I became a coach, and I, you know, and then I did take care of this chapel on this hill. I never had my own congregation, but
it was like symbols was showing him stuff though, and that's how he deciphered it, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, this dude, this stranger just came and felt the need to tell me all this stuff. You know, I didn't, and so he didn't claim to be psychic. You know, he didn't have a shop. He wasn't selling me nothing. He just needed to give me this message. So it sounded like that's what that lady needed to do to you. Sometimes that's how it happens.
I think we can all tap into this. I just think
100%.
I think it happens sometimes. You know, there was a part. I mean, some people are more tapped in, like yourself, and it might be just because you let it. But there are times, even in my life, and I think in other people's lives, like when you just know something, like you just know a thing, and sometimes it's mundane. It could be like, it doesn't always have to be a big thing, or it's just you just get this feeling like you know. Like when you know what someone's going to say, besides the fact that you might already know what they're going to say because you've been around them forever. Or, I mean, how do I explain this? It's like deja vu. We get deja vu sometimes, right? But this thing that I'm talking about is like a pure intuitive thought or a feeling. I give you an example. Robert Monroe, when he was in his book, I always go back to that book because it's full of everything. I'm sorry, but I know it back to front almost, but when he was playing cards with his buddy, there was about 10 to 20 minutes there where he could tell, he just knew what card was going to come up every time. And he almost felt bad for gambling with his friends because he said, I know, I don't know how to explain it. I just know what's about to happen. And this doesn't happen all the time. It just happened to him momentarily. I wonder if that's that field that you're picking up on all the time that we tap into every now and then. Like, I wonder if that's some kind of field that we can tap into. Like, I'm not talking about a zone where you can't miss, basketball, free throws. I'm talking about like a conscious field where you just know something, It
The
normally
ether?
wouldn't. Yeah, something like that. Because I've had it before. Dude, I've had that before.
Okay, so I have a relationship with a friend that I met in Reno, Nevada, on a retreat that the bank that I worked for back in 2007 sent me on. Right before I got into HVAC, I was working as a bank manager, and the bank sent me on this retreat in Reno, and I met this girl. I was on the dance floor, and she was on the other side of the dance floor, and we sort of like locked eyes or whatever. And she came up to me and said, "What?" Like sort of aggressively. She was like, "What?" And I was like, "I didn't say anything." She said, "Yeah, you were calling me from over there." And I, thought this girl was just trying to pick up on me or something, but it turned out not to be that at all. Like this was in 2007. I was nowhere near into or experiencing any of this stuff. But come to find out, she was like literally picking up on some sort of telepathic message that I was like sending her. Because over the years, Joe, we've maintained a friendship. She lives in another state. She'll like know what I'm feeling when I'm feeling it. She'll call me whenever I'm having a problem. It's so weird, dude. And I for a long time I thought maybe this was like just some bullshit, but it's not. I like have a relationship with a friend that we have like I don't know, dude. It's weird. Like sort of have a clairvoyant relationship where she picks up on like she knows I'm talking about her right now. I guarantee you. It's just really strange. So I think different people have different skill sets in different areas of these extrasensory perceptions, for sure.
Yeah, like if we focus on stuff, we're focused on stuff every day that has nothing to do with that realm most of the time. But if you kind of just let go, I think you can tap into it. That reminds me of a time I got into an argument with my one of my ex-girlfriends one time. And I feel like we had that same kind of connection. This might not be the same thing, but she was going off about something. She had a temper, so she'd get mad and flip out, and I'm more of laid back, calm. So if I get to that point where I'm mad and flipped out, it's bad, it's toxic. But she could push me to that point. But I remember one day she was flipping out about something, and I'm looking at her. And I didn't say anything, bro. I didn't say nothing. Came out of my mouth. but she looked at me and she said, the thought went through my mind. I was like, man, you're all effed up right now, you know? And then she repeated what I said in my mind. She said, you, what did you just say? And I said, I didn't say anything. And I know I didn't say anything. Nothing came out of my mouth, you know? And she goes, yeah, you did. You just said that I'm effed up, or that I'm effed up in the head. And I was like, that's exactly what I was just thinking. But I was so mad at her at the time because I know I didn't say it. Does that make sense? I was like, because I thought she was gaslighting me. Right? I was like, you're gaslighting me or trying to make me think I'm crazy or something. I did not say anything. Nothing came out of my mouth. And she was like, she was flipping. This is so weird. But she was flipping out thinking I was gaslighting her. She's like, so you just said that I'm effed up or whatever. And now you're trying to tell me that you didn't say anything. She's like, do you think I'm stupid or crazy? And I'm like, what is going on? Does that make sense what I'm saying? I'm like, I was literally going like, what is going on? Because I know for a fact I didn't say anything. But I'm wondering if she like heard that thought, like go, and it was audible to her, you know?
She did 100%, Joe. So one of the series of books that I came across, it's a series on magnetism, mental magnetism. And it literally talks about practicing this, like looking at the back of somebody's head and calling their name out, like mentally, not, you know, like I look at the back of your head and I say, Joe, hey, Joe, hey, Joe, hey, Joe, until you turn around and you look at me, because it's like you'll pick up on it. Yeah. 100%. Like I've read in this literature that's how you can practice, starting to basically, you can use it for good, right? Or you can use it for bad. Like it's sort of a form of mind control almost. Like if you're trying to, you know, manipulate someone, or you could just, you know, like, so you had the ability, because you were so like sending the message and she was able to receive it. So
yeah, we had some other things happen too before, but this was when we were like liking each other towards the end. I mean, we just started treating each other bad, and but I know I didn't say that. I know I didn't say it out loud, man, you know? And you know me, if I would have said it out loud, I'd have been like, yeah, that's exactly what I said, because you are acting messed up, right? Like
you thought it strong enough for her to pick it up, dude, for sure.
So strong that she didn't even miss a beat. She came back at me like I literally just said it. And we were in some kind of weird, I call it a toxic frequency, but some kind of weird frequency where we both thought we were gaslighting each other at the same time. You know, like I'm telling her I didn't say it because I know I didn't say it. She heard it, but she's trying to tell me that. Does that make sense? Like, I know you said it, so don't lie to me. And I was tripping out, man, because I'm like, either this girl's like really crazy, or she can hear my thoughts. And I didn't even think about that day, because we were angry at each other in the moment. And when you're angry, nothing gets accomplished. Everybody's in defensive mode, right? So nothing, it sucks. It's stupid. But later on, I realized, I was like, man, maybe she did hear that. You know, that's not the same thing though, is it? That's not the same thing as what happens to you though. Like as far as picking up people's loved ones around, or is it close?
It's all connected, dude. It's all connected. It's psychic development. Yeah. Like there's, I can't, or maybe I shouldn't say I can't. I currently don't have the ability, or maybe I do, just pick up on someone else's feelings from a distance. Maybe I do, maybe I'm not aware of it, or I haven't explored that area.
You definitely picked up on mine when I called.
Probably through the vibrations of your voice.
Yeah, I mean, I was really needing some help at the time, and what I expected in my mind was the people that I reach out to, they're going to just talk about their problems, and that's fine because that's what we all do. That's normal. I wasn't expecting anybody to just immediately go, what's wrong? And it wasn't even like a what's wrong normally. It was like you were really concerned immediately. I'm still tripping about it, man. Like I think like between you and Mary and a few other people that I know really have something going on. And I'm not discounting other people and what they say. It's just I also if I have a gift, I have a gift. This is going to sound completely arrogant, but I do have this gift. I have a gift of knowing when people are bullshitting me or when they're bullshitting themselves. It's not necessarily a gift, I guess, but I can just tell sometimes. And when people that are truly psychic, I do believe we all have this ability to do it. I just don't think it's as developed in a lot of the people that claim they have these developments. Bro, I'm talking hundreds, if not thousands of people that told me they were a psychic or a medium or something. You know that, right? Like lots of people tell me this stuff. Same amount of people tell me they saw a Bigfoot or whatever. And usually,
I guess in your position, you would get that.
Yeah. And usually the truth is about 30% of what I'm being told. Just from my experience. I'm not saying the ultimate truth, but my experience, that's what it's been. So it's when I say that I know you got something, bro, I know you got something. I think you got to figure out how to really develop it though, like turn it into a freakish talent. May not want to though. You almost sound like you're a little afraid of it. I could be wrong though.
I'm not afraid. I just I mean the truth is I've got bills to pay. So I plan to just keep doing this HVAC thing because it's how I'm making my living. But I do have a calling. And so I'm trying to gently transition into this position where I can fully own it. Yeah, maybe turn it into a freakish talent. But as long as everything else is taken care of first, because I have responsibilities to my kids still. They're not quite adults, so
yeah,
trying to keep my feet on the ground. Trying to keep my feet on the ground a little bit here.
Do they know? They know this about you, right? Or
yes, it's all out in the open. I've got no secrets. I got no secrets.
You tell me one day when the daughter take dad to school day, my dad's a medium. This is my dad and he's a medium. It'd be funny.
No. Yeah, they're probably not too proud of it. That's okay. That was part of the trauma. Was me going through this. Everyone think I was going crazy. I thought I was going crazy. I mean, when you're seeing ghosts and you're going through many possessions and wind up in the crazy house, and it was a struggle, man. It was a struggle, that's for sure. But everybody's
if you wind up in the crazy house again or ever, just call me. I'll come bust you out, man. I had a friend that was perfectly sane, but he had some really crazy things happen to him and dealt with some really crazy people, and it made him even more not crazier, but more doubting of reality. Like I said, and he's no longer with us. So I think the worst thing that you can do is start comparing yourself to other people. I'm kind of the opposite of Joe Rogan when he talks about how normal people are. Like I think that's the worst thing you can do to people is like be you need to follow some arbitrary sense of rules when it comes to reality, because that's easy to say from where you sit, because you're so like where he sits, because he's pretty judgmental to a lot of people like us. But when someone has an experience and they talk about it, there's always a risk. I mean, it's not a fallacy. There's always a risk. There's always a risk the wrong person's going to come along. And like, say, for instance, if you live in Florida, you can get Baker Acted just for talking about this stuff. You know that? Like, a neighbor could call in and say, I think my neighbor's losing their mind or something. And the cops show up, they start asking you questions, and if it doesn't add up to their reality, you get Baker Acted. They lock you up and get you evaluated. You can't get out until you're okay. So I don't know why I'm talking about that, but it's it's true though.
Well,
man.
you reminded me, that it did take some courage to finally, write about my experience and be prepared to share it with people. I think it's because I feel like I think I have sort of a responsibility to share with people that there is life after death. So what does that mean? I mean, does that mean, I don't know. Everyone has to figure out what that means for themselves, but that's what I figured out, like I'm interacting with people that have deceased. You mentioned your grandma. Like I've really find a great responsibility and joy in keeping the memories of my loved ones alive, and that I feel like they empower me. I think that if we pass when we're supposed to, that I personally believe that we have a choice to come back, or we have a choice to stay in that astral realm as helpers, as guides for our loved ones. I think that when you die tragically, or you take your own life, or don't know what happened and you die, maybe you get stuck. There's different reasons people get stuck. But I've maintained relationships with friends that I've lost by keeping their memory alive. And like I said, it empowers me. Talking to them like they're really there. They're my invisible helpers.
Well, I'm glad that you have them, man. And I'm glad that you're a part of this thing, and you'll always be a part of us in this community. And I just wanted to follow up with your last show, because you told the story. I know there's a lot more that you don't get to tell, because there's kind of pressure when you're on the show. There's pressure to do stuff, but when we talk, just me and you like talking, I know that there's a lot of stuff that you haven't told that's probably going to be in this book you're working on. So I can't wait till it comes out, man. You got to finish it, man. Pressure's on now.
Oh yeah, I'm super motivated to get it to publish by the summer, hopefully.
Right on.
Basically done. Just a little bit of editing, and we'll get it out there.
Well, I appreciate you coming back on, brother, and we'll do it again sometime soon. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm game. I've got a few more stories to tell you. At that Vietnamese Buddhist temple, they tried to perform an exorcism on me. That was pretty crazy. And also I had a visitation from a couple orange orbs. So we can talk about that stuff maybe next week.
Yeah. Exorcism, I'm really interested in. I want to hear about that, right? That's cool. A Buddhist exorcism. I don't think I've ever heard of that. Did it get crazy? Did anything happen?
They videotaped it, and I didn't remember. I lost like an hour and a half of it. I was unconscious, and I had to watch it on film.
Oh yeah, we definitely got to talk about that. So tonight was Coach Chris. Tomorrow night, Mary Lucina, the New Moon special, and then we'll move into the weekend. And then next week we'll bring Chris back on. We'll talk about his Buddhist exorcism. I'm stoked, though. It was good to do the broadcast this week. We'll be back tomorrow night. I'm stoked, man. It's 70, almost 80 degrees outside. The stars are out. The birdies are back. The frogs and crickets are chirping. I got the door wide open to the shack. You know, maybe one of these nights we'll do another super late night broadcast. I'll do another. I usually do one of those, maybe one or two a year, where we just broadcast for hours and hours and play music and talk about all kinds of stuff. So I'm thinking about doing that too. And yeah, thanks to all the supporters, the patrons. Also, keep in mind too, I don't think a lot of the patrons, I just figured this out. A lot of the patrons of the show don't know this, but if you do the $9.99 support level for the broadcast, you get access to anything that I put in the Patreon store. And I'm not trying to get more Patreons by saying this. That's not why I'm doing it. I know you're listening. So there's a tab there that says shop, right? If you click on that tab, I have all of those audio guided courses, meditations, and path workings and explanations, and all of that stuff there is yours. You'll get access to all of that and anything else that I put in there. And now that I mentioned that, if you are thinking about signing up, if you sign up for a year, you'll save a month. I think like a month and a half. So if you're into saving money and you have the money, you can just pay for a whole year and it'll save you a month and a half too. So just thought you'd like to know that. Thank you all for your support, including you, Chris. Thank you for your support, brother. Big shout out to the Domec, the Patreons, the supporters, everybody in Discord. We'll be back tomorrow night with Mary. Love you all. Night night. Sweet dreams. Travel freely in the void. Oof.
Gotta get some rest, brother. Yeah, I guess that's probably the thing. You gotta get the blood flowing, you know, gotta get the blood flowing. Get some energy that way. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I think it was a great show. I wish I could multitask, dude, and look at the chats and shit. The same thing I did last week, where I didn't start looking at these chats until the end of the show.